What is it?
It's a puzzle.
And it's almost finished.
Keep going.
So if I solve it, do I get a prize?
I do.
Well, here it is, another reimagining of a classic horror movie, but this time one that actually worked, and that was actually really good. So, so this movie is a reimagining. It's what it says. It's a reboot, but it says reimagining of Clive Barker's 1987 film of the same name, where in the original it was girl finds the box, and then it opens up, and then the Cenobites come out. In this one, what ends up happening, they change the story a bit, but what they did with it was really good. Now, I've seen the original, but it's been a while. It definitely needs a rewatch. But in this movie, the box keeps changing with each person, or with each time a person's blood goes into it. And it was really cool the way it was like changing around. It was changing shapes like a puzzle, because that's what it is. It's a puzzle box. But they put more lore into which one stands for each new shape, which I liked. Where with the original, from what I can remember, it was just the box, and it was just like, all right, that's just, there you go. But with this, they actually explain everything, and it was like, okay, I generally liked what they did. This movie is directed by David Bruckner, yes, who did a segment in the first VHS movie, and is scheduled to come back to that series with next year's VHS 85. And when I saw VHS before watching this, and when I heard that he was going to do this, I was like, okay, like, all right, we'll see how this works. To me, I've seen the original. I have not seen the sequels, but I wasn't when they announced that there was going to be a reboot of Hellraiser. I wasn't like, oh god, here we go. I was just kind of going like, okay, like, we'll see what they do. And they started saying that Pinhead is now going to be female instead of male. I was like, all right, well, we'll see what happens. And they showed photos of what Pinhead looked like. I was like, okay, they still have the design, but they changed it a little bit. Like, all right. Then I saw a trailer for it, and I was generally surprised, and I went, oh, okay, like, this generally looks pretty good. And then people were saying like, yeah, it is really good. So finally sat down and watched it, and I was generally surprised on how good this was. I was expecting something from at least decent to subpar, but I was not surprised on, I was really surprised on how good this actually was. So this time the story is centered around woman who's a recovering drug addict who just can't get off the pill. And she, with her new boyfriend, whose name is Trevor, which I do like how more movies are coming out with names named Trevor. I do appreciate that. But most of the time they just end up being jerks or villains. So it gives my name a bad name. But they end up going to this warehouse where they okay, I'm going to stop right here and say that this part that I'm about to say is not a spoiler. This is how they find it. But it was like there's so many kind of red flags. Like, okay, it's in a warehouse. They then go in the warehouse. It's in one of those giant ship container things. I forget what they're called. And then inside, it's just a single safe. And then inside, it's a box. So it's like it was like opening up one of those Russian I forget what those Russian doll things where you open them up and it just keeps coming. Like there's more inside. It was kind of like that. I'm just like, okay, look, if someone's trying to hide this or get rid of it away from civilization, maybe don't go out of your way and go like, all right, it's in a facility. Okay, it's in an abandoned warehouse. Okay, it's in a giant ship container. Okay, it's in a safe. Okay, it's in a box. It's like, all right, really? Like, you really that desperate? But so right then and there, I'm just like, okay, I don't get what you're doing. But because honestly, I would go into the warehouse. I would see the giant ship container. I would open it up and I'd see the safe and I go, yeah, no, I'm fine. Even if I was so curious to see what's inside the safe and open it up and it's a box, and then in the box, it's fine in the puzzle box, I would stop and think, something's got to be really interesting about this to hide it or have this much protection in it. Yeah, no, I'm not going to touch that. I'm just not going to do that. I'm white, but I'm not that stupid. But because, in horror movies, they just they're stupid. And there's so many times where I watch a horror movie and they have that cliche character who's just like, oh, let's go into this. And I'm like, no, you are absolutely stupid. But once they get the box, then all hell breaks loose, literally. With the Cenobites, I noticed that at least a good portion of them, maybe all of them, I don't think so, but a good portion of them, it's all female. And I was like, okay, I generally liked the way they did kind of the gender swap. I liked what they did. And also they bring back old ones that you're familiar with. But there's a lot more, because in the original, I think it was just 4. There's I believe you see at least a dozen, but there's at least 3 that they show a lot. But there's quite a bit. And I'm like, all right, I like what they did. Now, I don't know if they considered the sequels as canon to this, because then that dozens of Cenobites would make more sense from what I heard, because I haven't seen the sequels. But, I liked how it was like a constant thing. Like, it's like over the years, people have discovered this box and bad things have happened. Like, all right, I like what they did. And also the gore is really hardcore. Like, it's like, if you watch the VHS movies, it's pretty much up there with those movies. And the VHS movies are very, very graphic, especially second movie. So I liked how, and it was all practical too. So I liked how it was all practical. And also a lot of them looked like it hurt. And I was like, ouch, ow, 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 okay. And it didn't help that I had to stop around an hour and 20 minutes in and eat food while I was watching this movie. That didn't help. But I was fine. Now, problems. The climax felt a little long, because the movie you would expect a movie like this to be an hour and 30 or an hour and 40 at least. It's actually 2 hours on the dot. It's exactly 2 hours. And the climax it's very much kind of like Scream, where the climax happens like 40 minutes left of the movie. That's the entire climax. It's pretty much the same thing with this. And I have no problem with that, but it just was like, it was just kind of like, all right, I think we're getting near the end. Oh, I got like 30 minutes left. Like, all right, let's see what happens. But then they immediately pull me in and go like, all right, you think you're bored now? Here you go. And they throw something at you that's like, oh, okay, that's really good. Characters, a lot of them are just there to be, hanging meat from chains. But, from what they did add a lot of character to them. And sometimes it was like, oh, that's kind of sucks that they got the shaft. But, I was kind of expecting it. I'm just kind of going like, okay, I think you're going to die. You may live until the end. And sure enough, I was right on most of them. But, I still thoroughly enjoyed what they did. There was enough stuff that they were doing new, but then also they were being respectful and doing a lot of old things as well. So, but it wasn't like them throwing old stuff and then them looking at the camera going like, hey, yeah, you see what we did there? It doesn't do that. And I'm very glad that it doesn't. And also, too, the score was really good too. It felt like it was something new, but then you hear the old, Gothic sounds from the original. And it does a really good job. This was generally surprising to me on how good this was. Yeah, I had little nitpicks here and there, but then overall it was very satisfying enough and very, very good, and I give this movie a great. They haven't said yet if they're going to do another one, but if they do, and that'd be cool. But me personally, if I see a gold box that just all of a sudden starts moving on its own, yeah, no, I'm going to try to destroy that or not even touch it in the first place because I'm not that stupid.
Feed it. Their blood, their pain, all for us. What is it you pray for?